It's
Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Harper. I'm the Executive Director of the AACFB, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, The Do's and Don'ts of Deal Submissions. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded, so all participant lines will be muted during the broadcast. However, you can submit a question at any time during today's presentation using the Q&A box, and they will be answered by the end of the webinar. Please reserve the chat for the communication between attendees so your questions are easily identified by the presenter in the Q&A box. If you have a question and would like to ask your question verbally, please click the raise your hand feature and you will be unmuted to speak. Our presenters today are May Philpott with Quality Equipment Finance and Kayla Sprayberry with Hub Funding Solutions. At this time, I'll turn it over to them so they can tell you a little bit more about themselves and get going on the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Kayla, you want to start?
Sure. So my name is Kayla Sprayberry. I am the owner of Hub Funding Solutions, and I am a broker. I have been in the business both as a lender way back when and as a broker for the past 10 years. And I really started as a one woman show and have grown it to a small office. And we really try to focus on efficiency, structure, and we do a lot of larger ticket deals, whether it's in equipment or otherwise. So we deal with a lot of documents, and it's a lot of fun, but challenging. But it's great lenders like May who help make that easier, and that's what I want to help you with today, is helping you with processes to keep your lenders happy.
Thanks. On that note, I'll be the happy lender. I'm May Philpott. I'm with Quality Equipment Finance. I've actually been in the industry for almost 20 years now, 19 as of September. And I've only been on the lender side, but I've worked with many brokers. And this presentation is hopefully useful for you. I feel like Kayla and I have a lot of perspective to give here, and Kayla will be helping you with what you should do, and she will be your Duchess of Do for this presentation, and I will be the Diva of Don't, because I'm super good at criticizing and telling you what's wrong. No, but I'm excited to get this going, and so we're going to jump right in. This is Kayla. Why don't you take it away?
Okay, so let's talk about the advantages of, right? So the first reason that you want to have a great submission packet is that you make more money. That's a given because you're able to get more deals done faster, easier, and you're just able to make more money, especially in the time that you're given each day. You're definitely going to increase your efficiency and fund more faster. And then building vendor confidence in your company, I feel like, is a really big deal, because when you're working with a vendor, the only thing they're worried about is when they're going to get paid. So if you're able to make this easier for yourself, your client, and your lender, your funder, then it's going to make it a better experience for your vendor all the way around. You can also create a happy repeat customer base because they like you, but they love your process and what you're able to help them with on that side of it. And then you're able to jump to the front of the lender queue. So you don't want to be in the back of the line, you want to be at the front. And this is a really important part of being in the front. We all want to be in the front of the line.
Yeah, so as a lender, I can tell you that when somebody hits it out of the park every time, their packages get reviewed first, because we know it's going to be easy. It'll get through credit quickly. It will be approved and they'll be able to close it. So that's a pretty big deal, why you want to have a solid submission. And of course, why you don't want to not have a solid submission. You're just wasting time. Like, what's the point in spinning wheels? We're all in business to make money. And if you just send crap and see if it sticks, then what's going to happen is you're wasting my time and you're wasting your time. And when I say I'm speaking on behalf of funders and lenders out there. A lot of deals die because of the slow, painful back and forth. Well, we need this. Well, now that you sent the bank statements, I see this. I need to know about this. If you just send it all up front, then we can say, this is what we need, or this is what we, or this is going to go or not. So ending the back and forth will keep you from having to go back to your customer 20 times or your vendor 20 times. And it will keep us from having to touch that transaction 20 times, which again is a big time waste. Vendors, again, as Kayla pointed out, they don't want, they want somebody who will get their deal done quickly. And you will lose your vendors, and your pipeline will get smaller if you're wasting time on not packaging deals properly. If you just do it the right way the first time, it will be done the right way. And also, especially in our tech world where we live, people put reviews online all the time. And if you upset a customer or a vendor and they feel like giving you cruddy reviews or filing complaints with the Better Business Bureau, this person wasted my time, took my money, whatever it was, didn't get me funded. Those are real issues that you will have to face. So it's better to just get yourself together. And then, of course, like I said, getting pushed to the end of the lender queue. The fact is that people that submit better, cleaner packages will get pushed ahead of you. And I always love this little metaphor here. Which chair would you rather buy? The one that's actually built and comfortable to sit in, or one that you have to kind of put together? You know it's going to be a chair, or you have a cow in a tree. Is this even going to be a chair? Is this a belt with a wooden buckle? Like, we don't even know where this is going. So it's really important that when you send a deal, your lender, whoever's reviewing that deal, understands this is where this is going. This is what we're trying to do here. So moving on. Let me introduce you to Generic Funder Rep Inbox. So this is my inbox for the purpose of this presentation, but it could be any lender. And as you can see, our lovely broker sent in the best deal ever. And you can see we have some attachments. Some of them are labeled, some are not. It's a spectacular customer. That's great. It's the best deal ever. But do we know how many of these emails in here are actually pertaining to this deal? Is there multiple deals? There's no subject heading that ties it to the deal. I have no idea what's going on all these emails. And of course, we have, like I said, files that are labeled or not. I have no, is this a deal for a plane? If the broker put in his write-up, I could say, sorry, quality doesn't fund anything that flies. Is it for somebody who wants, a 5% rate? They want something that like we don't even offer. So really important point of what not to do is don't just send stuff into an abyss. Label it, give a subject heading, and make sure that your lender, whoever's receiving your email, knows, hey, this is email 1 of 3 in this section and for this particular transaction, and make sure that they understand what is going on. And that's part of being efficient, is that your lender rep can look at it and say, hey, if you give a quick write-up in your email, you can even possibly get a fast no, which is better than a very slow killing it no over time. Kayla, did you want to add anything on this one? Or moving right along.
The big thing to remember on the last one is that lenders are getting multiple deals every single day. And if you want to make yours stand out, I think an important thing also is your subject line. So a great thing to put in your subject line is new deal, the client name, and what it is or how much it is. That way they know, oh, this is new. Oh, this is XYZ customer and it's a plane, or it's 350,000, whatever basic pieces that you want on that subject line is really going to help it stand out in their inbox, because everybody wants to see a new deal. And also for searchability, because even though lenders have fantastic CRMs, you need to be able, in every single deal you send in or managing, at least in the subject line, do your client's last name or do the company name. Company name is actually best.
Company name is best. Yes.
Yes. Use the company name so that you can go back and refer to it. So whether you're searching for it or your funder is searching for it, it's easy to find.
For sure. And then Kayla, this is actually from Kayla's own kind of template for organizing a deal submission. So tell everybody what they should do in their emails.
Sure. So we have a template for our emails when they go out, and we have multiple templates depending on what we're doing, whether it's a large ticket equipment, a small ticket equipment, working capital, SBA, whatever we're doing, we have different templates so that we can send an email and it has the basics, because the greatest write-up in the world needs to be an attachment. It does not need to be the front of the email. So if you give the quick and dirty, like we have here, then they can see the basics on there. We have the client information, we have the equipment information, the requested contract terms, which I'm gonna be honest, when I was a newer broker in the space, I wasn't sure what I even wanted to do as far as my points, because it depends on the size of a deal. You don't ask for 5 points on a $3 million deal, and you don't ask for 1 point on a $30,000 deal, right? So you can always put open, especially when you're down here in those requested contract terms. You want to have an idea, but if you're open, just put the word open. That way you're filling that in, but it gives some space there. Supporting docs. So this is kind of our short stack of what they should be looking for in the attachments. So in those attachments, they should see those things. If we have them, there's X's beside it. If we don't have something, it will not have an X beside it. Like if we don't have, say we have the specs, but we don't have the invoice yet, we just have a quote, we will write that out. We'll make sure that the lender knows this is what's on here. And something that that we do, which we'll talk about in a minute, is depending on how many attachments there are and the size of them, we may not attach them. We may attach a couple and then have a link somewhere where it says under guarantors addresses. We'll have a doc link to a Dropbox that allows the lender to be able to click on it and open the rest of the documents. So you don't have to send multiple emails.
I'm going
you
to jump
wanna
in
talk-
on this for a second.
Okay.
Things that are important, definitely, as Kayla mentioned, the subject heading, putting the company name. Most documents are going to go by the customer or by the company's Secretary of State listing, like as it is done in that actual, as it's written by this in the Secretary of State. So if you match that, then you should be good. This kind of stuff, what the equipment is key, because we're all in equipment finance. And the fact of the matter is, if I don't do that equipment, it's really easy for me to just say, hey, thanks for thinking of us, but this isn't what we're doing right now. If you have a customer who's looking, again, like putting all this information up front is a great way to at least get a quick no. And then another thing you can add on here, and Kayla actually does on a submission, if there's something noteworthy, like this guy has a repo, it was a car that he signed on with his daughter, she didn't pay. It's from 2014, but it's paid off, but it shows as a collection or whatever. Just kind of address up front some of the things that you think are going to be, and that may be part of your amazing write-up, but address up front some of the things that you think could be deal killers if they go unaddressed. So, Kayla,
Right.
why don't you talk about this for a minute? This is another do.
So this is a big do, and I wanted to add on that last one. We'll do a short write-up, 2 or 3 sentences that just says, here's the basics of the deal. That's normally at the bottom. It just got cut off, but a little paragraph about the overview of it to give it a little bit of color. Sorry about that. You can go ahead. On the docs, so you noted on the first slide about that things were not labeled. Labeling is a big deal. We wanted a better way so that files would be labeled, they would be PDFs, they would be clean and organized. We actually work with File Invite, which is an associate of the AACFB, that gives us a checklist. We also have templates for the different types of deals that we're doing, and the client, this is what the client sees. Then the client can go in there, they have their checklist and they upload everything. We like it because we're not getting 100 emails and we have to file it. The other great part of that is that this system actually names each file for what the document name is. So if they upload some financials, no matter what they call it, it will be called 2022 P&L and balance sheet. This actually then goes in and syncs with, we use Dropbox, but you can use different things that it sends it to, and it makes a full file with the Dropbox link. It's really great, especially for deals where you're going to have a lot of docs, tax returns, and large files. But any way that you can organize your documents is going to make it easier for your lender and put you at the front of the line.
For sure. And I want to add up top, we listed some places where you can have file storage and sharing. And a lot of standard CRMs have storage within them, probably not the capacity that all of us need with the volume of documents that we touch every day. But a really important thing is to make sure your lender can actually access those files, because a lot of us that work for banks, we have crazy spam filters, or we are unable to just click on your link. And so you want to make sure that if you, at least the first couple of times you send a file sharing link, that your lender knows, hey, there was a link in here or in this email, and just want to make sure you can access it, or give a phone call. Like, it never hurts to call and follow up.
Yeah, definitely call and follow up, or shoot, if you're on a text basis, which is great. You say,
Yes.
hey, I just sent you a deal. Can you let me know if you received it? It gets better as you go along, but being able to have that clarity with them goes a long way. So it's a little extra effort for a lot of time saving down the road.
Yeah. And it's really just like same thing I tell my kids, like, just do it right the first time, because you're going to have to go back and do it again. So I'm going to go through that inbox that I showed you earlier, starting with scan 1, 2, 3, 4. And lucky for us, that is the app. So yay. We have this wonderful company, Broken Horse Trucking Co. out of Tallahassee, Florida. I'm looking at the app. There's definitely no signature here. There's no authorization. There's no language to say I have the right to use this information that my broker got from this customer. The entity type says it's a partnership. I only see one owner, and his title is co-owner. So that's a concern for me. Obviously, not really sure why I would only have one applicant. And no, there are some lenders that don't need 100% ownership to sign, or I know at Quality, we require anybody who's a 20% owner or more to sign on a deal. And maybe that's the case. Maybe good old Billy is, 80% owner, and he's got 2 other 10% owners. So I don't know yet. I don't know what's going on, but I do know that I'm missing all the credit authorization language here. And I'm missing some really clear details about the other owners, ownership percentages, some basic stuff about the actual company. So Kayla, here, so this is your don't send an application that is incomplete or inconsistent or information doesn't make sense. Kayla, go with what to do.
So here's a do when we're talking about legal authorization. So originally when I was brokering, we were mainly with your privates, which I didn't really have to have legal authorization language as much as I do now. We went to Pathward, who used to be MetaBank, and Crestmark. So we actually had to send them our application to be approved as a broker, and they had to approve our application that it had the correct language on it, because even though the client is authorizing you to look at their credit and you to look through their business information, that's got to have a third-party release on it. So I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really sure. I got on and I started looking at bank applications. I went through and I just Googled bank commercial finance applications, and several came up from different banks. I took that information, went to my attorney, and I said, okay, here's the information that I want to put here. Does it work with you? He said yes. And I sent it off provisionally to my great rep that was at Crestmark, and had them review it. And they just came back and said, we need this, this, and this. We're missing these pieces. Okay, no problem at all. We made the edits, we sent it back, and we were covered. So this is at the bottom of our application. On a letter basis, I think it's 2 pages. Bigger where they've got to fill it in, smaller on this, and it has to be a certain font size. I can't recall what it is right now, but you have to have a certain font size so that they can actually read it. But it covers us, it covers the funder, and sets you up for success there. A few things that you need to make sure that your application includes would be the credit authorization and release, the authority to share information with others, the Patriot Act notification, the ECOA notification, and business purpose. And I know for a lot of you, this is kind of a next level. You don't have these on your applications yet. It's something to work towards, especially if you're going to be working with larger banks. They're getting more strict. It's coming, and it's great to just be have it already done. And if you move, make sure that you update your information in the notices so that you have the correct information.
Definitely. I'm going to add on the ECOA, which is the Equal Credit Opportunity Act notifications. Quality makes it puts the onus on our brokers to send out ECOA notifications. But each lender may handle that differently, but it may be your responsibility if your client gets turned down to send out a notification. So make sure that you are managing that appropriately. And so, yeah, so a good credit application does have legal authorization and obviously various notices. So back to our inbox, I'm going to open the next attachment, which is taxes. As it turns out, the good news is these are actually taxes. But I have a cover page of a 1040 from 2010. So it's kind of worthless to me. I'm missing the rest of the file. And it's outdated information. And then I have an 1120 from 2022. And interestingly enough, the application had, you may or may not recall, had said that the company was started in 2013, but this shows that it was started in 2015. And I'm noticing some inconsistencies here. So I definitely want to point out that if you're sending anything, send all of it, send all the pieces that are necessary. I have no ownership information. There's no K1s, there's no Schedule Gs. There's nothing here that's going to say this customer owns this because it's done under the company name. So just things to not do. And now, Kayla, tell us some things to do with multi-page submissions or multi-page items in a submission.
Let me add one thing on taxes. Tax returns are needed more and more now than they used to be. And a couple of key things are, you want to make sure that it's the final version and it's not some draft. Even if it says draft, you want to go, okay, is this your final version? They can always call their accountant and have it emailed over. Another thing is, if it's password protected, make sure in a separate email, of course, that you send, hey, the tax returns are locked. Here's the password, or just call them and say, hey, this is going to be the password for this. That way they're sending it locked for a reason, and most accountants are going to send them locked. And that's because it has their social security number on it most of the time. A couple things as well on tax returns is you're going to want to make sure that it has all of the pages of the tax return. The first page doesn't work. The first 3 pages doesn't work. You also need to see K1s. You need to see anything that they may have done on a depreciation schedule. So on a tax return, ask for all pages.
For sure. And then
so
when you get all the pages and they're all out of order, don't just send them over. What should you do, Kayla?
Okay, for that, there is a great thing called Adobe, and in Adobe, it allows you to organize pages. And this goes for tax returns, this goes for bank statements. Maybe they sent you the bank statements as a picture and you cropped it and turned it into a PDF. Well, you need to put all of those together. You either need to group them, as in the case of bank statements, by month. Or if you've got all of them together, you can, but make sure the pages are in order. And Adobe allows you to do that. Adobe is free. Acrobat, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your computer, but it will allow you to organize those, make sure they're in order, and compress it if needed. But Adobe is a great tool.
For sure. So there's a yes, a what to do. Back to opening attachments from this inbox. So now we have a Secretary of State, which is great because now I can kind of figure out what's happening here. I can see the company was started in 2015. I have the principal address says attention Annie Oakley. Annie wasn't one of I had William T. Kidd as my applicant. So Annie is on here. Florida is one of the few states that actually list owners or as managers on the Secretary of State. Some Secretary of States don't. But the biggest thing here is there is legal supporting documentation, and there is the stuff that you get from your customers. So there's an application, and then there's a Secretary of State. There's the application information, and then there's the tax returns. There's all these actual legal and federal and state documentation. It needs to corroborate your story. And if it doesn't, then you either need to fix your story or confirm with the customer what the real story is, or explain it. And that's part of where the space is in your write-up to explain, well, this happened, this customer did have a company in 2013. He was operating as a sole proprietor. And maybe that's the information that I'm missing, because he says he established in 2013 and we can see he's established in 2015. So really consistency and corroborating information, particularly when it comes to documents that are filed with the state and federal government. Those are the ones that we are going to trust, not whatever story your customer is giving you. So you need to make sure that you either explain it or fix the inconsistencies. And then for Secretary of State, Kayla, what are some do's?
So a definite do is to use something like this, esecretaryofstate.com. This is going to let you check the SOS for all 50 states. And a couple things you need to be looking for are is it correct? Does what you have on the application match what's on the screen on the Secretary of State? Even if it's different, a dash, if it's one word instead of two words, like everybody likes to get creative. Everything has text on it in Texas. Everybody puts text on something. So you want to make sure that's correct. The other thing you want to make sure is that they are current and active under the Secretary of State, because if they're not, it's a quick phone call, get them a little bit of help where they can go in, file what needs to be filed so that their entity can be active and in good standing, because a lender cannot lend to a company that is not in good standing. So they can approve you all day long, but they can't fund until the Secretary of State they either see it or they have something come through that says that it is in good standing.
I know that's a policy here. I don't know that is there's some legality behind it before we give y'all some information that I don't know. Maybe you do know that, Kayla, but
yeah, they can't file a UCC unless it is current. So it's not able to legally operate.
Okay.
Like
and then there are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's like a driver's license. You have to be in good standing to be able to operate.
Right. Can't be expired. That's a big one. Expired IDs.
And it's really easy.
All of it's really easy if you just pay attention. So one thing there are companies that you may have an owner operator or somebody who's filing a Schedule C who's operating under their own name in a DBA. They will not have a Secretary of State listing, but there are some states who do file assumed names or do have business certificates for people operating under their own name as a DBA. So just keep in mind, if your client says my company is Billy Bob's trucking, and then you go look it up and he's in Alabama, and then you see Alabama does not have anything named Billy Bob's Trucking. He's like, well, that's what I operate under, but it's really, my name. So you may have to, when you do your own verification, which you should do on everything before you send it to your lender, there may be some back and forth with the customer, but my best suggestion is the same as what you would do with your lender going the other way. You verify the information with the customer and you look at everything you have and you do it one time. You can go say, hey, I just went through everything you've given me and these are my questions. These are what I still need. So here's the next picture. This is my favorite. The CDL. Oh wait, it's not expired. Do you know how I know you didn't open this? Because you sent it to me. This is ridiculous. There is nothing that you should send regarding any transaction that you didn't double check. that you didn't at least open it and make sure it was that thing. I would love for a broker to make sure that the CDL is not expired, or that the ID is not expired, but to send something that is completely unrelated and just it has a label, but that label is not correct, that's a big no-no.
Or
And
it's somebody else's.
yeah, or somebody else for sure. But that's a big no for me. And a big no for all your lenders, because we know you weren't paying attention. You didn't make the effort. And we're all making effort on your behalf. And it's much nicer for you to actually do this part of the job instead of us being like, what is this? And taking up lender's time. And then here we have the invoice. Wow, it's a great invoice. We see Broken Horse is buying this 18-wheeler. We have no idea. It's a P389. We have no idea who's selling it. Truck seller guy. The VIN is illegible. It looks like it says there's a rebuild. I don't really know what's going on here. All I know is that this invoice is not any information that's not legible. There's no point in sending it. I can say it that way. If you have an application that's filled out that you can't read, we can't read it any better. So making sure that you have the actual information that is pertinent, and that you have, if it's a vehicle and there's had a rebuild engine, then you need to have that paperwork. If you have, I don't know, whatever, if you have some manufacturing equipment, then you need to be able to explain what it is, what it does, have specs for it, or have a link to the website so that the lender knows what they're working with. There's all kinds of equipment out there, and your goal is to make it as easy as possible on your lender to look at it and say, this is a good deal. So you want to spoon feed them all the information very easily and clearly. Kayla, did you want to add some of the stuff that invoices or bills of sale should have?
Sure. So we look at it as we need something. Everybody wants to go, hey, great, you're going to get this equipment. Wonderful. We'll send it in for you. It used to be that we could do more pre-qualification, right, May? It was like, they're thinking about getting this. It's not really like that anymore. Now you need at least a quote or an invoice or a bill of sale. And it needs to have some basic things on it. It needs to have the year, the make, the model, the mileage. And not guessing, actually have it. And a picture of the odometer helps back that up. It needs to have the VIN. It needs to have the seller information and the buyer information.
And if it's not titled serial number, it needs to have hours. If it's a machine that has hours, it needs to have the information that pertains to that particular machine, whatever it is, or that particular asset. So
it used to be a lot different where you could be more generic, and now it's just not that way with the market the way it is. It's very specific, and they need to be able to look in their comps and go, hey, that $120,000 is a fantastic deal. Let's do it. And the more pieces of information that you give them, the better it is. I think something that's also important to have on that is you need to know if there's a lien on this equipment. There's a lot of people that are selling equipment that has a lien on it. Because they're distressed or they need to sell it. And those types of pieces are also important. We'll get into that at another time, but give your funder the basics so that they can create a profile on the asset just as much as on the company.
Right. And as Kayla pointed out, and especially at Quality, but most lenders, whether it's your sales rep or the credit team or whoever is doing underwriting, they're pulling comps. They want to make sure that this piece of generally used equipment is what we're dealing in this industry, and that this piece of equipment, that price is reasonable, and that we're not overpaying for something. And, as I say, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Nobody's getting some crazy deal. So just make sure that the more information you can give so that comps are more accurate, it's better for everybody. So,
there's one thing that, especially in the trucking world, if you have a truck that is your standard single cab Pete 389, that's very different than a tandem heavy haul with a sleeper. So if it is a sleeper, put a sleeper, because some funders don't do sleepers, some do. If it's a tandem, definitely put that because it has a much higher value than your standard. So pieces of information like that, it may not be on the invoice, but make sure you put it in your specs so that it can be comped appropriately.
For sure. So I'll chime in a little bit, but Kayla, what are some tips for getting, so a lot of times, well, this is the invoice that they gave me. So this is what I sent. I mean, you can see they're buying a truck and it's 120,000. Okay. So what are some tips from getting good information from both the borrower and the vendors and wherever information is coming from?
Setting expectations. So setting the expectations on what you're going to need from the client and the vendors, especially after approval, is really important. We have that initial checklist, but we have something after that as well that does a few things. It sets the stage for what's going to be happening and sets expectations, and really gives them a roadmap, because most clients have no idea what they need to do. Most vendors really don't know what they're supposed to do. And so you need to help them out a bit in a constructive way. So when you're talking to vendors and customers to get good information from them, you can get the equipment, sell the equipment, and make more money faster. You can manage the expectations, time frame, and process. That's a big deal. The vendor just wants to get paid, or the seller, oh dear Lord. So private party sales, those sellers, they're the most vicious people. Bless their heart, as they say down here, but they want their money and they want it yesterday, and they don't care about you. But there's more paperwork involved, I feel like, in a private party sale than even a vendor sale. They're great, especially in this market, but if you can help them, it'll help you too. It'll also help you jump to the front of the line and underwriting and funding queues, manage the expectations and approval pricing. And number 5, send closing and funding checklist to everyone involved. This is just a simple one that we sent for a pickup that was for a closing. They were approved, we'd signed, and these are the things that we needed to get everything closed. A big thing was on this one, we already had a copy of the front and back of the title. We had the front, but we didn't have the back. I cleaned it up just a little bit. The title application. Title applications can be tricky, and May, I love you, but a lot of lenders now are putting it on us to complete that titling package, where the title application has to be perfect. So we're stuck in the middle with a vendor or a seller that doesn't know and a buyer that really doesn't know or thinks they know. And so you need to know what is expected, how that title application needs to look. The insurance binder, we're going to need that COI, the vendor invoice, the photos, the power of attorney. So all of those things are really important, but it needs to be really, really clear what the expectations are. A lot of times we will send an email to the client and the vendor going, okay, we're ready to close. Here's what we need from the customer. Here's what we need from you, vendor. And then that way the client knows what's going to be needed from both parties, because if the vendor is dragging their feet, we know why. If the client is dragging their feet, we don't have a vendor calling us 20 times a day, wondering where their money is. So doing it right the first time establishes strength and strengthens the vendor and customer relationships and helps you keep your sanity.
Yeah. So I operate on checklists just because that I need them for me as well. But I have to add that, like, to remind them that when they send you misinformation or partial information, it like, you need to be the front line and say, no, this is not acceptable. If you want this financing, then you need to get me what we need. And I understand every lender is different. And I've worked for various lenders, and the processes are different and what they need is different. And what, here at Quality, we require a mock-up title reassignment on a copy, where at previous companies, if we saw somebody had reassigned a title and done like a fake, we thought it was, some sort of fraud. And so we really like understanding what your lender is looking for and then conveying that to the vendor and the customer It is part of the job. It may be frustrating, but if you keep yourself organized and you keep them and you keep your vendor and customer organized, you can manage it. Well, we're waiting on this because this still has to get done, or this has to get done. And it helps as far as accountability also, like whose responsibility is this piece of this? And they know because you've already told them this is your piece. My piece is making sure that you get your pieces done. So just really managing expectations though, and reminding them that like you're doing your job is to make sure that they get what they need done in order to take it to the end. So back to the attachments in the inbox. We have some bank statements, except we really only have, I can see it's from December of 2021. So again, obsolete information. This is not useful to me, what this guy was making last December or 2 Decembers ago, excuse me. Page 1 of 10, I have 1 page. Bank statement covers are acceptable for some lenders. They are not acceptable at Quality for sure. If we ask for bank statements, we're looking at a number of things that may include, does this customer have unsecured loans in there? Is this customer have NSFs? Are they managing their cash flow? Where are deposits coming from? Is it a single source? Is it multiple sources? Is it weekly? Is it daily? We want to understand. Banks give a lender a certain kind of picture, and there are some lenders that underwrite specifically from the bank statements. And so redacted information is just a no. Like if your customer isn't willing to give information, then it's time for you to say, when you're ready, we'll do this. But for now, I'm going to go spend time with a client who is ready, because customers that are redacting information, they're not ready to proceed. And that's okay. Like there's no pressure to them. It's just, hey, this is what's required. Your information is protected. Nobody is going to steal your bank account, but they are looking at this information. They want to make sure that you are the account owner. So these bank statements in particular, but like any information, redacted information just isn't useful. Go ahead.
So a little thing I have to say on bank statements, and I'm sure y'all know this, but we've seen a lot more people now that have kind of what I call a clearing account, their main account that their deposits come into. And they may have 2 accounts that their deposits go into. But either way, you need to see the accounts that the deposits are coming into. And I'm talking about the true deposits. If they have their operating account, that's more their office account where they make transfers into it, we don't want to see that one. We can see it because it kind of tracks their expenses, but we need to see where the we need to see as brokers where their money is coming in and how it's going out. So you may be asked, you may have an initial submission on your bank statements. Make sure the bank account numbers match, because if you send 2 months of ending in 3-4, and then the next month is 7-8, then that's not the same account. And May's just going to say, hey, I'm missing one. Or
Well,
just
I'll say I'm
reject the file
missing
altogether.
3. I'm missing 1 of one and 2 of the other.
Yes,
And
you
on
are
top of that, though,
correct.
you're right. A lot of businesses have clearing accounts or sweep accounts or something, and those accounts basically zero out every day, every other day. So they're not going to give strong balances. So there are lenders that are underwriting based on deposits, and there are lenders that are looking at balances, and there are lenders that are looking at the action in between. The best thing you can say, in my opinion, to a customer is, sorry, let me get rid of my pop-ups. The best thing that you could say to a customer is, hey, no one's going to lien your accounts. We're just looking at them to make sure that you are cash flowing, that you're managing your business properly, that we can see that you're a good risk here. This will help us, that you have money in the bank, that you have money in case something goes wrong. We want to know that you have something saved, or that you have some money to fall back on. If I don't know, if your laser ends up, burning up, then you're going to need to replace it, or you're going to have to manage it. So with the banks, there's a lot of reasons why a lender may be looking at it. Same with any information, same with tax returns, same even with the application. And part of it is, like I mentioned, corroborating a story. So if the information that you have, if you say this guy makes, I don't know, in this case, you have a statement where he's making over $1 million a month, he's depositing $1 million a month. But if you tell me this guy makes 50 million a year and I can see that he's averaging 12 million, that doesn't really match up. And so again, you want to make sure that not only are you sending the correct information and you've labeled it properly and you put it in order and you have all the pieces, but that the story that you're telling makes sense. And so if we look at another attachment, oh wait, look at this. The accounts attachment is the exact same, but let me double check. Is it the same? From what I can tell, even though they've redacted account numbers, it is the same. This is the ultimate waste of time. And as Kayla pointed out, sometimes you send stuff in an email. Sometimes you send a link to a file sharing system. However you send it, I am begging you, send it once and only once, and make sure that, as Kayla had in her template, this is what's included here. Because that way a lender knows what to look for, what you've sent, what's included. If you send the same information repeatedly, it's the ultimate waste of time, because then we have to side by side two different things, or that maybe two different things, to find out they're the same thing. So please send it once and only once. Kayla, do you want to talk about some other items people may be asked to send to a different lender? I of course put the quality checklist in. Hey.
Yeah, I actually, when I first started brokering, I actually got my first submission checklist from May. She was so kind to share it with me, and it really helped me be able to kind of build my operations and organizations, and now I've just become a freak about it. But a few other things that you'll have for submissions that you could be asked for are credit bureaus if you're doing a soft pull. That just helps them take a quick look. A lot of them will pull their own now, but it allows you to get your foot in the door and show that you've done that. And there's a lot of options through the AACFB to check credit. So check into that. It's not expensive and it's definitely worth it. So financials.
I gotta interrupt you on that one for a second. On the credit bureaus, if you pull a 550 on somebody and you know this lender is not going to work with somebody below 600, like, that's important to know. If you don't know what your lenders are doing, you should learn. But if you don't, at least put that information up front. Anything below 650 is noteworthy for sure. So it's definitely something that you would want to put in that initial email or write up. All right. Sorry, Kayla, go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. Financials, internal is the most common. That's where they're doing them internal. If you look at their financials and they look terrible, tell them to go to a bookkeeper and get their financials cleaned up, because it will kill your deal. It could be the greatest client ever, but if their books are a mess, it is not going to help you. Compiled, reviewed, and audited. Audited financials are freaking gold, but do not send we have a couple of lenders in the AACFB that require audited financials. Don't send somebody with internal financials only to that lender, right? Send them what they need. Know your funder, know your deal. Asset, equipment, collateral list. Those are all things that help them decide if they have assets, kind of what their risk is there, and that helps them kind of see the overall arching. The business debt schedule is absolutely a must. And on debt schedule, we're not just talking about, oh, here's how much I owe this people. When did it originate? What is the monthly payment? Because they need to be able to see if debt service is viable. A lot of people are getting, 90% leaned. And you don't want to send that to a lender who only wants to work with people who have a lower debt service.
Also on that, we operate in an entire industry of essentially secondary financing. If we're seeing transactions, most of them are not a credit, easily bankable. And what it means though is a lot of us as lenders, and Quality does report to PayNet, but a lot of us as lenders don't report to PayNet, which means that your customer may have years of business debt that they have paid perfectly or whatever the case is. And it's not showing anywhere. It's not on their personal credit. It's not showing on a CBR, and it's not showing on PayNet because they're not reporting, the lenders are not reporting to PayNet. So it doesn't show on PayNet. And these customers, and sometimes even when it's not required, they may want to share the fact that they've paid these loans, they have these and they're managing them, and they are managing their debt. So most of the time a lender will say, just send what we need. But I will say, if there's anything that you can add to corroborate your story and to show that your customer is a responsible, good paying customer, why not include that? So back to you, Kayla. Sorry.
Great point there. So personal financial statement, this is definitely needed for your larger transactions. And on the personal financial statement, if you have somebody that's pretty wealthy that has some assets, it should be coming from a CPA. If you have a business owner that's a little more simple, that's fine. But most business owners who fill out their personal financial statement, it is scant at best and it can kill your deal. So if you have a really good deal and you want it to be great, that personal financial statement needs to come from their CPA. A CPA can help a business owner do their personal financial statement. They may even have one on file. So important piece, especially for your larger transactions. The SAFER report is another thing that can be asked for. Vendor verification information will be needed on the vendor if it is a vendor deal, and use the checklist. So I used to make the mistake, and May had to talk to me about this and a couple others. I would overshare. I would get all of these things and just share. And I had a lender tell me, hey, you're sending too much. Just send what is on the checklist. So for the majority of deals you're going to do, they're going to be in that 30 to 150 range. It's a great range. Keep it simple. Take the KISS approach. Just ask for and do what is on the submission. If you know it's a $75,000 deal, don't send the things that are in the 250 to 3 million box. It's not really going to help you. It could help you hurt you in some cases. So just keep it simple and follow the list. Most of the lenders all have checklists that they can share with you. Shoot them an email today and say, hey, can you send me your checklist so that you know what that lender needs? Because they can be different.
Yeah. And like superfluous information it's superfluous unless you connect it in some way. So if you can see on Quality's checklist, I don't know if you can see number 13, the very last one, any additional information you believe will help with our understanding of the customer, equipment, or transaction. So for us, though, if you just send it, it's not nearly as neat as like, hey, I've added a note. I've added the 23 year-to-date P&L because business really picked up this year. And while his income wasn't great in 22, 23 is already triple that, or whatever the case is. There's definitely, if you give some understanding with the additional information, I mean, at least with Quality, I would say, it's not the end of the world to send extra, but really if you are on just a smaller deal, 150 or less, which is, I feel like where a lot of transactions play, just go with the checklist. And speaking of checklists, here is a checklist for you from us. Here is your dues, a whole list of dues. Know what your funding source does, though. Deal size, if you're trying to fund a $10,000 deal and Quality's minimum is 30,000, don't send it to me. You're not going to like what I have to offer. Understand how pricing at your lender works. Understand what rates you're going to be showing your customer, what kind of pricing you're going to be showing your customer, what kind of terms. If your customer has some mental parameters that you have managed or not, make sure that the lenders that you are sending their transaction to fit that customer, that equipment, that pricing, that term, whatever it is that they're looking for. All right, Kayla, you get to do number 2.
Sure. The searchable subject heading, like we talked about earlier, company name or customer name. Company name is really the best, so that it is searchable, because while we love to all organize everything, I still find myself on a daily basis going, okay, I need to pull up that email from a week ago on XYZ company. I can keyword search it and it's there. So that just makes everybody's life easier.
Yeah. And then if you're sending multiple emails, just number them. Like, then I know whether or not I got them all, whether I have all the information that you sent. So 1 of 2, 2 of 2.
If you're using a file sharing system, make sure your lender can access it. So kind of set it up, call a few of your lenders, say, we're thinking about switching to a better way for us to share files, especially if you do larger ticket transactions where it requires more documents. File invite is great. That's through the AACFB. There are a lot of options out there. So check the resources first and that we have through the association. and see if they work for you. If they don't, there's a lot of other options out there. Just make sure if you're using something, vet the company, vet the app, vet it, because you're putting your customers' social security numbers, driver's licenses, very sensitive information in here. So I wouldn't use something random off the internet because you don't know who has access to that information. So look it up, vet it, see what works best for you, and if your lender can access it.
For sure. Include the write-up, like I said, and your write-up can be in your email body, or it can be as part of your submission documents if you want to do a more serious write-up. But including the main points should be in your email body. What are we getting? How much does it cost? You know, whatever you do know about that customer that's pertinent. You know, if you have an idea of the credit score, if you have an idea, you know, time in business, and you should know time in business. We literally just gave you a link to look up any Secretary of State in the United States. So no excuses on that. All right. Kayla, now you can make my point.
Yep. Make sure your corroborating information is consistent or inconsistencies are explained in a write-up.
Yeah.
They may ask you for more things later too. I would, don't create a problem where there isn't a problem. Just mention it and they can always ask for other details later.
For sure. That's key. No need to make a problem where there isn't a problem either. Organize and label everything. And again, label them or in the email or use the file sharing system. But really important, if you have tax returns for 3 years, label the years. Is it an 1120? Is it a 1040? So is it personal? Is it business? So really just label. The more that you label also, the less you have to reopen those attachments to see what it is yourself. So it helps you too, I assure you.
And put multiple page items in order and make sure you have all the pages. So Adobe, it's a life changer.
For sure. And then check everything before you send it. Do not send me meatballs, please.
Nobody needs meatballs in their inbox. And then, I did go. Sorry, got me at meatballs. Have signed apps for all required guarantors with legal authorization and assignment language. If you need help with that, reach out. I'm happy to send you a template of what I have. Get it approved through legal counsel if you have it. We always have Ken. And with your lenders, don't just stick it and send it. Make sure that, you know, you've got some, that it's works for you, your situation, your lenders. But if you need some help with that, you can reach out to me by email and let me know.
Mm-hmm. And then include as much information about the equipment as possible in the deal. There are some lenders who really are underwriting the customer and less the equipment. But when it comes down to the, you know, second, third tier lenders and the people that we mostly deal with here, they need to know what they're getting. They need to be able to comp it and make sure that the price is reasonable, and that the equipment is a decent version of whatever that is, that it doesn't have too many miles. It doesn't have too many hours, whatever the case is. So
include your item once and only once, and I'll only say it once.
Perfect. And then use a checklist. I'm going back to that too. And use checklists to help manage your vendor and your customer as well. Checklists are your friend, and they will keep you organized, and they will keep the people that you have to deal with organized. And I think that we've given you the bonus tip repeatedly at this point. It's only $13 a month to get Adobe Acrobat Standard, and you can do so much cool stuff as far as organizing and labeling and converting things that are photos when your customer texts you pictures of their bank statements. So
Life changer.
Yeah.
Monica?
So that's it. Thank you for joining us. Monica, do we have questions or anything that we need to answer?
I don't have any in there now, but they are coming in. So just as a reminder, if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature, and I can unmute you and you can speak. Okay, I have a big long one, so let me read this to you. Is it possible we could eliminate all the mystery to every submission? Would it be possible to develop a template to copy and paste into lender submissions so brokers could copy and paste and avoid any possibility of a delayed, poor, or torturous submission. Kayla, would you be comfortable sharing all of your templates? Quality requires 20% or more of ownership to sign confirm. That's a question for yes. Okay.
So, yes, I'm comfortable sharing them just as kind of like plain text. Ours are kind of built into there, but whatever templates you need, I am happy to share with the association.
Yes, quality needs 20% plus ownership to sign. I know there are other lenders who require anybody who has 20% or more ownership in a company to sign. I know there are other lenders who have other stuff. And then the first part of that question, which was, can you use that template over and over? You can fill in the blank for every lender. It never hurts to call attention to the same information up front. But obviously different lenders, again, underwrite on different factors of a profile. And we're just understanding what your lender is, not just looking for how they underwrite is going to be key. And if you aren't familiar or you're not sure, go to an AACFB conference and walk up to their booth and talk to them about it. So yes.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Other questions, Monica?
More of the same question. Could you share the application and legal authorization required by Pathward, another bank, and includes font size? Says USA Patriot Act, ECOA, release and authorization. I think that's what I'm looking for.
I don't remember the font size. I can't share the app. I can see if I can take the legal information off of it as a what is it called, a picture. I'll do something like that, but I would really urge you, I'm happy to do that, but you need to run it through your own counsel first and your lender first, to make me more comfortable. So
right, Kayla is neither a counsel or a lender, and like that's our disclosure, and I am not counsel, and I am certainly not the decision maker at my lending company. So
Ken makes way more money than I do. So I'll put it up there, and y'all are welcome to do that. I welcome you to. I think it'll make your lenders happy, opening up for a lot of banks, funders as well.
Yes. Other questions?
Just a comment that Adobe can be difficult sometimes and fight the users. For example, the file's too big, you don't have authorization, etc. I know with Adobe, I use it for AACFB business as well. I know you can run into a problem if the file is password protected and you're trying to merge it with another. So you have to make sure that
I know how to do that.
Sensitive documents that you can find a way to get around that password protection.
Sometimes you can't do that.
So one, if you have something that's password protected, you should get the password. But there is a workaround with Adobe. So if you pay for the actual like Adobe Acrobat standard where you can like move stuff around and convert files, if you open something that's password protected, and then I don't know if this is a good tip to give out or not. There's a work.
Well, here's the thing though, May.
Yeah.
Is that if it's password protected, it's most likely coming from the accountant directly, and I'm not worried about putting everything in there. I would look at it and pass it forward, because you don't want to alter anything.
That's
okay,
true.
There is a responsibility. Adobe is a power that you have to use responsibly. It should be used for viewing anything that is sensitive, like a legal doc or a tax return, because those are coming the way they are. If it's not correct, tell them to go back to the accountant and do the whole thing. Where we're saying to use Adobe for organization are generally bank statements and things that are out of order.
Right. And it usually doesn't come password protected because it's out of order because somebody took pictures of it, or they sent you 6 pages and half of them are upside down because they copied them front and back, top to bottom, whatever it is. Yeah, I would say I'm with Kayla, that definitely don't edit information in Adobe.
Yeah.
It's the magic there is reorganizing and making sure everything is actually PDF'd and available for your lender to be able to read it.
If you get squeamish, just tell the client, say, hey, I can't see this, or hey, this isn't working for me. Can you please get a clean one? That is their responsibility, not yours. I think we take too much on as brokers that we're supposed to fix everybody's problems. And
women.
you have to be careful there, or you can end up in the middle of an issue. So proceed with caution. And if your gut's telling you, I don't know if I should do this, just ask the client. Most of the time they can just fix it. We fix enough in their lives, they can make a request for a different document.
Right.
This one's for May. What do you mean by corroborate?
So when information corroborating information, so if I tell you I'm right-handed and then you look and you see that I have like goop all over my left hand from writing, like you can see my story, I'm not corroborating the same story. I'm telling you one thing, but the evidence is something else. So the fact of the matter, when I say information needs to you have to corroborate your story. If you tell me, if your application says this is a partnership and there is a single person, a single applicant on that application, that's not corroborating the story. And then I look at the Secretary of State and I see that there is in fact 2 owners or 2 managers of this company. Now your application is not correct. It's not telling the same story. So when I say corroborating information, I mean that each piece of the story should prove the exact same thing. That should be that this is when the company was established and this is who owns it currently. And the tax returns, when I see the full tax returns and I see the K-1s and it turns out that there's actually, it's a partnership, but there's 3 partners.
Silent partner.
Right. There's 3 partners. I can see now there's 33 and a third % owners. And the tax returns show me that. Well, now it's not corroborated. So when I say you're corroborating, your information has to be corroborating information, it has to help tell the same story from every different piece of information that you send. And if it's not, then you either have fraud or you need to get an explanation. You need to clear it up. Or you need to get all the information. Maybe you're just missing information. Maybe it's not fraud or a lie. Maybe you're just missing something. Sorry for accusing you of telling lies. Yeah.
How do I know if there's a lien on the equipment or not?
Can I do the broker side on this? Because y'all have the easy part. So
Go
lenders
ahead.
can look it up, brokers can't. Pull the UCCs. So you can get on the Secretary of State again, and you can pull the UCC search and see if I see things on there from Cat and John Deere, and this guy is
Medical
looking
lender.
for that equipment, then I feel pretty good on that. That's why knowing the name of the seller is important, especially in a private sale. Now, if it's at a vendor and it's a resale, unless they are, what is it called? Unless they're just
Consigning.
That's the word. Unless they're consigning, then there is no lien on it. But in a private party sale, I either ask for a copy of the title front and back, or I look up the seller and find out if that seller has a bunch of liens on it, or if there's some big bank lien sitting there and I read it and it's a blanket. Even though that piece of equipment for that seller may not necessarily have a lien on it, or it isn't titled, it may be still held as collateral under that blanket. And that's where you just need to ask the buyer, do you know if this has any liens on it? Because they need to be asking that of the seller. I don't really get involved with the sellers that much besides them harassing me, but it is really important, because if you don't make sure of that, and that lender doesn't get paid, then title is peaceful, and not title, but peaceful ownership of that is not done correctly.
So I'm going to chime in on the lender side here. On something that's titled, not an issue. We can look at the title, we can see if there's a lien or not. It's that easy. When you're talking about something that's not titled though, and that would have a UCC lien, you have to have the POO, is the proof of ownership. And there has to be a clear chain or we are not funding it. And that's every lender. There's no lender who will take a risk on funding an asset that they do not know is free and clear and of liens. And so your guy may be buying it from a private seller, and maybe that seller has financing records, and then there is a bank that they would have had an invoice, and a bank that they financed it through, and they bought it originally from a vendor. And then that's proof of ownership and a clear chain of ownership, and we can work with that. Maybe that bank still has a lien, a UCC lien on it, maybe it doesn't. Another issue with UCC liens are not actually put on equipment, they're put on owners. And so if I say I own this thing and you look at me and it's lien free, but it turns out it was my sister's, like, you didn't know, there has to be like, lenders are way too, lenders are way older than me. They've been doing this longer than I have. And I know enough to know that there's no deal without the proof of ownership or a clear chain of ownership on something that's not titled. If your seller bought it from a private seller, it's going to be a pain in your butt, but you get to be Sherlock Holmes and trace that all the way back as far as you can. So you have a lender who's comfortable with that equipment either doesn't have liens or we're paying off somebody or whatever the case is. If it does have a lien, it's actually better, because then you'll get a payoff letter from a bank and you'll know exactly who to pay, and that the lien is going to be released. But not finding liens doesn't prove that it is a not liened piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's why private party sales are great. I mean, we see it a lot in large equipment and trucks. But just make sure that you know your customer and make sure that you feel comfortable with the deal, because you're going to be kind of married to that deal. It's a lot. So make sure that it's worth your time and money to actually take that on, time especially.
Time is money. That's what we sell here. We sell time,
Yes.
especially as a broker. You sell time and expertise. And so, yeah, if you can see that that's not feasible, just say it's not feasible, or put the onus on the customer. You need to make sure that is free and clear equipment. This is what we would need. Yeah.
This is your all's opinion. Is the transportation industry currently in distress, or at least on the lower ebb of a 5-year economic cycle?
I mean, I'm the ephemeral salesperson, mermaid hair, don't care. I don't think that it's in distress. I think that particularly with places like Quality, where we fund a lot of transportation and we fund a lot of private party sales, it's actually great. People are getting in and out, they're getting good deals, and they're able to make money. There's a lot more. I think I have to say, I think Amazon kind of changed the market for how they pay truckers. And I think a lot more people are getting paid net 30 or sooner. And I actually think the industry is doing pretty well. And we've seen, since the summer, I guess the last couple of months, we've seen an uptick in requests for financing, and particularly with private party and just used trucks. So I mean, based on what I see, I couldn't tell you how it's going to go, but I can tell you right now, it seems to be moving fine. How about you, Kayla? Opinions?
I tend to agree. I think we're seeing a lot of shedding, which is why we're seeing a lot more of that private party, or they're consigning. I can remember the word now. And so I think we're seeing a lot of things change hands, either generationally or people are merging. Transportation is a requirement to make our economy run. I just think it looks different than it used to. And we just need to be conscious of that, especially in the over the road area. But I would tend to look more at regional trucking more than over the road, just because of where I'm at and what I prefer to deal with as a broker.
Mm-hmm.
Last question. What do you mean by tandem truck? What is tandem truck?
I'm not great at defining this. They have more wheels, so they're made to haul heavier loads.
So it's a number of rear axles on a chassis.
There you go.
So a chassis can have, you obviously have a front axle, and then some of them have one rear axle, and then some of them may have two, and then
Or
there's
four.
yeah, then you get more axles, and then some of them have bodies built on that have additional axles plus flip axles. There's all kinds of axles, and there's all kinds of vehicles out there that we would love to fund for you. So feel free to contact Quality, and we'll hook you up with a cool broker.
That's why specs are important. Specs make all the difference.
For sure. All right, thanks, y'all.
Okay, Jill. So thanks so much for everyone for being with us today. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you all for participating and sharing your expertise. This webinar will be posted on the members only section of the AACFB website if anyone would like to go back and review it at any time in the future. Again, thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.